Welcome to Choose You Conversations, where we focus on self-care so you can do a better job of doing what God put you on this earth to do. I'm Dr. Mitchell Mulahi, psychologist, executive coach, and author of the book, Choose You. Welcome to Choose You Conversations, Father's Day edition. I'm Dr. Mitchell Mulahi, psychologist, executive coach, and author of the book, Choose You. Today we celebrate the special men who selflessly pour their love into a child's life. Some may be dads by blood, some by choice, and some may not hold the official title of father, but nonetheless have earned a special and cherished place in a young person's heart through their guidance, presence, and care. To all of you, the fathers, stepfathers, grandfathers, uncles, teachers, coaches, mentors, and other role models who generously give the time, wisdom, and affection to help raise a child, thank you. May your Father's Day be as wonderful as you are. We have some special guests who will be sharing lessons from and love for their fathers. I pray you enjoy this as much as I have. My dad is no longer with us physically, but his love, lessons, and laughter live on in our hearts. My girlfriend recently called my dad the coolest man in Cleveland. He did indeed have a cool, calm demeanor. He was a hard-working man who believed in the value of education and believed that if you're going to do something, do it right, do it well. So nevertheless, growing up, my siblings and I got more than our fair share of lectures. I learned how to bowl. My parents were both avid bowlers. And when I was growing up, I was in a bowling league. And after bowling all morning, probably I think from 9 a.m. to noon, I was ready to go. But if my father happened to come pick me up before I was done, he had to come show me a few things. And so as a kid, I was like, oh my goodness, I just want to go home. But in hindsight, I so appreciated that he wanted to work on my swing, and he wanted to show me this, and he wanted to show me that. Something else about my dad, he was always an avid golfer as well. He started caddying when he was a little boy, probably in the mid-1940s. And so he told me one summer, you're not going to sit around the house doing nothing all day, sitting on a porch. You are going to learn how to play golf. I don't want to learn how to play golf, Daddy. It's just going to be a bunch of boys. I was in middle school at the time, so, my focus was I did not want to be different. I did not want to be the only one. And he said, no, a lot of my friends have daughters and other kids, and we're always at the golf course. They'll be there as well. And I remember the first day of camp. It was a 2-week golfing camp, and I remember telling him, Daddy, there's not going to be other black kids there either. He said, there will be. Go to camp. The first day, there were 16 of us. 15 were white boys. This was 1982, 1983. I was like, can I just melt? Can I just go away? He kind of looked at me with a little sympathy in his eyes, but, oh well, let's go. Let's go. And go indeed we did. I golfed for 2 weeks, and my performance was pretty impressive, I think, for that point in my life. Let's see, what else funny memory. Oh my goodness. So my father was a business owner. He opened a store in 1967, and he would get a lot of tickets gifted to him to see the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Cleveland Indians. Now, I had zero interest in football and even less in baseball, but I would go to the game. Sometimes we'd go as a family, and my mother would make the fried chicken, we'd have the bread and the foil, and we'd go to the game with a whole big basket, and they have a thermos, and back then you could carry everything you wanted and could hold into the stadium. But sometimes it would just be my dad and I. He'd say, "You want to go to the game?" Again, I didn't care anything about the game. I went because I knew my father loved to eat, and I knew that he wouldn't put a stop to my request for food like my mother would. If we were at a game and I asked for a hot dog or peanuts, my mother would say something like, "No, you don't need it. You just ate." But if it was just my dad and I, anything I asked for, I could have. We would even leave the stadium, and I love hot dog vendors outside the stadium. Oh my goodness, those hot dogs with the onions and sauerkraut and mustard. And never mind that we just ate our fill in the game. If we walked out and I saw a hot dog man and said, "Hey, Daddy, can we get a hot dog?" He'd say, "Sure." 2 hot dogs. I'd get one, he'd get one. We'd walk and we eat. It was the best thing. Um, wow. My dad was a truly special guy. I remember being probably in elementary school, and he was working. He had gone shopping for the store, so he was pricing the items and shelving them. And this older drunk guy came in. He's wobbling, and he says, "Sam," he put his arm around my dad. And I just thought maybe because he was a little smelly and a little drunk, um, and that my dad might, sort of shrug him off. I certainly would. But he put his arm around my dad, and he said, "Sam, I love you." And without missing a beat, my dad said, "Benny, I love you too." This is a customer from around the store who got his drink on a daily basis. He loved my dad. Everyone around the store did. And my dad loved them right back. So I learned to show people that you cared for them. I learned to be compassionate. I learned to work hard. I learned to have fun and eat well. Those are just some of the lessons that I learned from my dad. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I hope you enjoy the other stuff. Okay, that part can be cut off. I got nothing else.
So, my father was the best cook. His mother died. He was 14. He had a baby sister who was 9. And of course, my grandfather was always at work. So that meant that he had to learn how to cook. And he made like everything was just gourmet. And so when I think about Thanksgiving, I think the reason today why I don't like Thanksgiving is because my father loved Thanksgiving so much and made the best dressing. Like I don't even eat dressing anymore. I'll eat like a spoonful and it's just brings back too many memories. But every Sunday he would cook breakfast, and it was 5 children and then also my mother's 2 nieces. And I'm sorry, 2 nephews. And he would stand at the bottom of the stairs. We'd all be asleep after he's been homemade biscuits. He made homemade pot pies. He was just truly like a Renaissance man. And he would stand at the bottom of the stairs and call us all by name in chronological order. "Stephanie, Lisa," and I really can hear his voice. It's probably gonna make me cry. And then we'd all come downstairs and eat together. And that was like, we always had meals together, but that Sunday breakfast, this man, he probably really only cooked on weekends, slaving in the kitchen for his children to cook them this fantastic breakfast is probably one of my best memories. It's so funny because I was with my boss one day, and she said, "Jennifer, how are you this way?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "You're smart, but you're so confident. You're so self-assured. You're so funny. Where did that come from?" And I was like, "I don't know." So I took it to my mother. I said, I call my mother Ev. Her name is Evelyn. I said, "Ev, my boss asked, like, where did I come from? Like, how did y'all make me this way?" And she said, "I didn't do that. That came from your father." And I was like, oh, what do you mean? She was like, well, I just think that your father loved you guys so much that he made all of you just so very confident. And so when I think about my personality and the way that I look at the world, I truly feel invincible in most cases. But I also feel like I'm the prettiest, the smartest. Even though I'm not the thinnest, nobody looks better than me. Nobody is better than me in any kind of way. And I truly believe that is because of my father and the love he poured into me. So yes, my mother loved and nurtured me, but it was something about that father-daughter interaction that makes my sisters and I just so confident and have so much self-belief because he just, I want to say, just pumped us up. And so I always tell people that even though I had two parents, I also had these other four siblings who were just pouring into me. So this is what you have today. Like, some people say it's cocky, but I say it's the love of a parents and family that made me feel like I am the best.
Wow, some of my favorite memories of my dad. And to be clear, when I'm speaking about my dad in this instance, it's my stepdad who was in my life very early, and of course, is still in my life now. So, some of my favorite memories with him would be going to the YMCA, playing basketball, working out with him, the different travels we did to Louisiana, to his hometown. Those are always fun, and just all those little dad kid things that you like really appreciate later on in life, like the fact that I know how to go fishing and could teach my son how to fish now, or how I could change oil, or like I actually love to cut grass. I don't know if that was beat into me or if I was just like, I'm just a worker. He reckons that I've just always been a good worker, but I feel like he kind of modeled that for me. So all the memories are good. What can I say? Wow. Uh, I really feel like I give my stepdad all the credit for all the good things that I am. He really showed me what it meant to show up for your family, to take care of a wife, to love her, to raise children, even children that aren't yours. It was never, I was never unaware that he wasn't my biological dad. However, like nobody else knew, just how he treated me and how he showed up for me in my own life. So that was just like amazing. And now that I get older, I just appreciate him more and more and more and more because now, even myself being in a similar, really, I feel like I place myself in the exact same situation. I don't know if that's just how nature works or what, but now that I'm in the same situation, I appreciate him more because I really understand everything that it takes and all of the kind of pushback and the limitations that come with the role, but he just like made it seem like it was the easiest, most enjoyable thing ever on this earth. And it's like, wow, I love you, man.
Wow. Oh goodness. The first thing that came to mind, or that comes to mind, I should say, is my father making breakfast for me, and those I love that. So yeah, he would make pancakes, and I thought that he made the best pancakes in the world, better than McDonald's, which is a big feat for a child. Better than McDonald's and better than IHOP. And I'll never forget one day I was talking about my father's pancakes being better than my mother's, and my mother said, "Son, all he did was use Bisquick." Oh man, but that's what it meant the world to me. And he had a rule when he'd say that the cook could not eat at the time. So, the person that he was making the pancakes for, their only job was to butter the flapjacks as they came out so that he wouldn't have to stop. But I loved that. I really did. That was a treat going to going to school. My father also took me to school every morning, so he woke me up in the morning, and I have such fond memories of learning not to stay in the bed. He used to say, "Son, get up, get up, get up. Nothing stays, nothing comes to a man in the bed but a dream." And then, of course, on Sunday morning, he'd come in and wake me up and say, "Get up, get up. This is the day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And then I'd get on one side of the bed, he'd get on the other, and we'd make the bed up. And my father had been in the Army, so he could make a bed up better than most hotel housekeepers. So I learned how to make a bed and have tight corners and tucked and all of that. Plus my little OCD, so we had a nice pretty bed every morning. But the number one purpose of that, so I learned later, was that when you make the bed up, it makes it more difficult to get back in it. So as a child, um, not wanting to wake up, that was part of the ritual of waking up and getting ready for the day. And I never have, obviously, have never forgotten it. And those are just a couple of the things that come to mind that bring me so much joy. I spent a lot of time, more time with him since I'm the youngest, more time with him than my siblings did at certain points and times in my life. I did not have him as long as they did. But I'd say during my seminal years of adolescence and, elementary school and adolescence and all of that, he was there, and I was there with him. I had to drive him. He had glaucoma. So at some point he stopped driving, and I'd have to drive him everywhere and pick him up from certain places and what have you. And that one-on-one time in the car with your father, learning his habits, um, and yeah, I'll never forget it. Never forget it. Never forget it. And of course, his scent, his cologne, his scent. I would say the number one lesson. Um, my father was a teacher, but he didn't preach at you. He taught by example. So he was a grinder. There's no question, he was a grinder, and he taught me to grind, have a positive outlook on life and the outcome of whatever it is that you are consistently dedicated to doing, and that positive outcome, of course, is based on faith, and that's how he operated, and that's how my mother operated, and that's what they taught all of us, all four of us, that we'd have to step out on faith, and of course be dedicated and consistent in whatever it is that we do. Public service was a number one, and they taught us to be giving people, and I know why I do what I do, when I volunteer without complaint, and so on and so forth, is because I saw my parents doing that, and that's something that, not even knowing it, that I subconsciously picked up on, spending all that time on Sundays and the weekends, and during the week, at church, or when church members, their past family members would die, and we'd have to go over it any time, any hour, and it was never an interruption. And always answered the telephone call, always being ready.
I got some interesting lessons from my dad. So I met my father, who was a real character, by the way. I met him for the first time when I was 12. And obviously, I had had a lot of life experiences, growing up to a single mom in the inner city Cleveland in the first 12 years of my life. So interestingly enough, a lot of my lessons from my dad actually came in the gaps in between his visits. My dad, once I met him at 12, I virtually saw him at graduations, right? So every time I graduated from the sixth grade. He was there in the eighth grade and the 12th grade and undergrad and grad school. My father never missed a graduation, but often I didn't see him in between those gaps. So I think if I had to synthesize his lessons down, or the lessons I got as a result of our relationship, um, if I had to if I had to break those lessons down, I'd say there were probably three. And I think the first lesson is to truly value the people that you say you value, right? Like if there is someone that you truly say that you love, value them. And the way we value people is in action. Love is in action, right? And so you have to show them in various ways, and maybe it's not every single day, but it's always in action that you show your love to people that you really love. Because I had to spend a lot of my time in between those gaps. He needed to try to reestablish a relationship because, right, because of the time of the gap. So when there isn't that gap, and when that gap is filled with even a quick little text message, I am good for that. If I haven't talked to somebody that I love in a long time, I am good for sending them a text message saying, I just love you. That's it. Right? Like, because I never want people to have to worry. So, love is in action, value them in the moment. So, that's one great lesson that I learned from my dad, or as a result of my relationship with my father. I think the second one is to honor your truth. And so once there was a conversation, probably the only significant conversation my father and I have ever had was during a drive. He drove me from Atlanta back to Cleveland, Ohio, when I was getting ready to go to grad school. And we had this long conversation about the whys, why behind his decision. Well, why did you leave? And why did you not call? And why this and why that? And he really stood on his truth. And his truth was that he felt that we were better off without him. Like we were healthier, safer. My mom was well equipped, and that because of where he was mentally and emotionally at the time, my sisters and I were better off without him around. And that was his truth. And he stood on that truth. I remember calling bullshit to that truth. However, the reality is that that was his truth. And when I was able to accept his truth, it really provided a level of healing. Now, I accepted his truth, but I also got some answers in that same conversation that helped me to understand his truth, right? And so instead of thinking about what was wrong with you, why did you do this, why did you do that, because of this truth, I finally got to a place where I realized what happened to him that made him feel that way. And when I understood that truth of what happened to him, that him feeling like his kids were better off without him was his truth, it created a level of empathy that actually freed me more than anything. So that was the second uh, real lesson. It's about standing on your truth because it's healing for you and it brings empathy for others. And I think the third lesson, Dr. Rachel, that I can definitely say I got from my dad was really around owning your gifts. So, my father is probably one of the smartest humans on the planet. Well, when he was on the planet, he was one of the smartest humans here. And 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 I always knew that, like I always knew that, like he could figure things out, like the way his brain worked was not like normal people's brains. And but he didn't use those gifts, and as a result of not using those gifts, he suffered, his wife suffered, their kids suffered, their grandkids suffered. So many people suffered because that one man chose not to use his gifts. And so, and I know I have those same gifts, and I knew that as a young person. And so I have been so intentional about using my gift, no matter what it is. If it's a gift for connection, a gift for laughing, a gift for talking, driving, whatever it is, whatever gifts I have, I'm going to use it in service to the world, because man, the world missed out because that dude didn't fully use his gifts. So I think those are the three. And I think so much of it comes from a place of deserving, right? Like he got so many lessons, being partially raised in the South, in Southern Georgia. He got so many lessons about not being worth it, right? Like he got so many lessons about why it was wrong to choose himself. In his mind, I mean, think about it. My kids were better off if I weren't there, right? Like that says, I mean, that's a level of not choosing. Right? Like he chose in his mind, that's his truth. He chose his kids over himself because, again, and part of it is that feeling of deserving. I don't deserve more, right? Um, yeah, so absolutely. And I'll tell you that he was he was absolutely doing his best. He really was. My dad was he was a Navy man. Again, look, those are smart folks in the military, right? But my dad was a Navy man, and served his country with honor, and really, really worked hard, and came back to the United States after seeing some not so pretty things in a faraway land. And so he was still trying to do, even through all of that, he was still trying to do his best. So much of it felt like he got so many lessons from so many places that said he didn't deserve you know so wait, you said he was genius, and he was growing up in the South, genius and charismatic. He was also dark skinned, and that brought another level. Like he shared story on that drive, right? That very magical drive that we had. He shared stories of how his aunt, who loved him, would go out as they were out in the field. He and his cousins and his siblings, they were all out in the field. It'd be early in the morning. When the sun came up, the one cousin, who happened to be very fair skinned, the out would come out to the porch and call that cousin and say, "Come on in here now, the sun's coming up." And she wouldn't let that light skinned child be in the sun, but the rest of the dark skinned children could be in the sun, right? So he got all of those lessons to tell him he wasn't good enough, he wasn't worthy enough, he wasn't enough. Thank you for honoring fathers. I honor him. I honor him to this day. Like, there were so many choices that he made that I wouldn't have chosen. But listen, every choice he made me the woman that I am today, and I wouldn't change that woman either. So I'm grateful for him, and I honor him, and I thank him. I thank him for all the ways that he showed up when he could. I thank him for being his best, his version of his best. And so I just challenge people listening to this, whatever their best is, be that, right? Like, be that, honor that. And whatever somebody's best is, accept that, receive that. It's their best. right? And so you'll free yourself from a lot of angst and hurt and sadness and sorrow when you decide to accept what somebody has as their best and let that be their best and you not be attached to it.
Oh, I got so many. Probably the traveling during the summer. During the summer, I would get to, he and my mom would allow me to plan trips for the summer. So those are probably some of the favorite. Just the old school traveling, you're in the car. I got a sheet in the back making my little tent. Um, we'd have, sandwiches, chips and sodas because you can't always stop. Those type of things were fun. Just new adventures, learning about different parts of the country, um, just talking, sitting around, just doing what we do. It was just me, so it's only three of us. So I had a captive audience rather. But those are probably some of the good, fun times I can remember is doing the summertime travels. So my dad retired out as command sergeant major, which is the highest that you can retire out in the military reserve. Um, he wasn't always that. So growing up, he was a drill sergeant. Um, so there was very little boundary from real life to military life. So So I did not like my dad much. He was very strict. So of course you had to clean. So I learned how to cook. I learned how to clean. I learned how to iron clothes at an early age. Cut the corners on the sheets of the bed. I was waking myself up by an alarm clock, probably early. I don't know, second grade, first grade. It was pretty insane. So I learned all those things. He was very strict. So you're going to get your homework done and get your chores done and stuff like that. So, I mean, he was just strict. My mom went along with it, you know. Um, every once in a while, you might get your tail beat. Not beat, but, that's not appropriate anymore. But you might get disciplined. Uh, but I appreciate that. I mean, I think it made for good life lessons, good upbringing. And I pretty much carry that to this day. My therapist asked me this yesterday. It's a great question. I think the way I was brought up impacts almost every aspect, every corner of my life. My dad and my mother were both good with money. Um, had very rigid, strict rules regarding money. So I learned how to do budgets, learned how to manage money, and to be frugal. Enjoy, but to be frugal and know that you're gonna need some of that a little later on in life. Um, Discipline, of course, was there. So life is a 12-step program. I think they were good teachers of the 12-step program. Follow your steps and you'll be successful. The life lessons of showing up really does everybody good. It's 80% of success. Doing that extra work. I mean, my dad rarely cut corners with anything. He's very structured, very regimented, very disciplined. Like, he's all those things that drive you crazy and irritate you as a child. But in your adult life, those lessons, if you listen and take it with you, will take you far. So, I don't know. He's a great guy. I love him to death. He's be 77. He's 77, 78. Goes to the gym 5 days a week. Um, he's a trip. And he just, oh my goodness, I have to share. He just he will be inducted into Oklahoma's um, Education Hall of Fame. So that is amazing. He's very excited about it. So, anyway.
Ooh, I remember us flying kites together. We had to go and get kites. We had to get three different kites because we would fly it and then it would fall and a car would drive over it. So we had to go and get another one. So we did that about three times. And after the third time, we just went and did something else. Another favorite memory was I remember the morning that my baby brother was being born, and we took my mom to the hospital, and my dad and we went to the store, try to get some cornflakes and stuff, and something happened. We couldn't do it. So he just came home and cooked for me, and I was so excited. Dad was hyping me up. So that was a very fun morning. That was the morning my brother was born. That was the exact morning. And then another is of my dad just being his big silly self. He was just very loud and he would give the biggest bear hugs. And I missed his bear hugs. You know, he did teach me do not be ashamed of things that you have gone through because they help build you up to be the person that you've become. Because he made a lot of mistakes and he owned up to all of them, and he said he would be embarrassed or people would ask him, well, I don't know if you wanted me to tell so and so this or whatever. And he said, I'm not ashamed. I did some wrong things, I made some mistakes, but going through all of those things made me the man that I am. So I took that, and to help myself get over some of the shame about some of the things that I've done, but also to not hide them, but rather to share those experiences with other people, to in hopes that they will help them, help guide them away from maybe some things that I did wrong and help them make other choices.
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say I'm very fortunate to have two fathers. One is a bonus dad, one is my biological dad. However, they have some similarities. My mom clearly had a type. So I would say my favorite things, or favorite pastimes with my fathers are both of them are nature lovers. And so just sitting outside, listening to them tell jokes, often joking on either my mother or my stepmother. But just really enjoying that quality time outdoors without really any constraints, and them talking really freely with me is something I've always really enjoyed. Yeah. I would say the greatest lessons that my fathers have imparted onto me is that I can do anything, and the only thing that will get in my way is fear. When I was younger, it was harder for those messages of encouragement to sink in. But as life progressed and obstacles occurred and I was able to persevere through them, I realized how true those statements are. And having just two men in my life who see me even when I don't see myself has always been something that has helped ground me and center me and help me continue on this journey. So I would say the best thing about my fathers is that they've always encouraged me to have fun. I don't know if that is the same across the board with everyone, but my fathers have always said, like, live life to the fullest, do all the things. I can joke with them about the naughty things I've done in my life, which I really appreciate. So yeah, I love my fathers very much.